The lost child night was cold, and the ruins were silent. Broken walls stood like bones of a dead city. In the middle of the rubble, a small figure moved slowly. It was a little alien girl. Her skin pale blue, her eyes large and empty. She looked weak, hungry, and afraid. Her steps were shaky, and every sound of wind made her freeze. The colony had once been full of life, full of families, full of children laughing. But now, everything was gone. The war had taken her parents, her people, her home. Now only the echo of silence remained. The girl pressed her small hands to her stomach, which growled with hunger. She had not eaten for days, only scraps of old roots and dirty water. She wandered through the empty streets, searching for food. Sometimes she found broken machines. Sometimes she found burned shelters. But she never found kindness, never found a hand reaching to help. Her people had abandoned her when the ships escaped. No one looked back to see if the children could follow. She was too small to run fast, too weak to climb inside, and so she was left behind. At night, she curled inside the shell of an old transport vehicle. She pulled metal scraps over her body to keep warm. Her tears made dark lines on her face, glowing faintly in the starlight. She whispered words of her mother's song. But her voice was broken. Every time she closed her eyes, she dreamed of food, of family, of a safe home. But every morning, the dream was gone, and hunger returned. In the distance, she heard noises, strange laughter, heavy boots, sharp metal clashing. Her heart pounded, because she knew who they were: raiders, scavengers, hunters. They searched for orphans like her. They sold them as slaves. Or worse, the little girl pressed herself deeper into the shadows. Her breath was fast. Her hands shook. She prayed they would pass without seeing her. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Voices spoke in harsh tones, words she could not understand. Then silence. She dared not move, dared not breathe. The night stretched long, like a blade waiting to fall. Finally, the sound faded away into the ruins. She sighed in relief. But her stomach twisted again. She was alive. But for how long? Even if the hunters did not take her, hunger would. Her small body was too thin, her bones sharp beneath her skin. Every step now was harder than the last. Still, she refused to give up. Somewhere deep inside, a small light still burned, a voice that said, "Survive, survive, survive." She staggered forward into the desert edge. The ruins gave way to endless sand and stone. The moonlight made her shadow stretch tall. She imagined for a moment she was not alone, that maybe her parents walked beside her. But when she looked, only emptiness stared back. She collapsed near a rock, her breathing heavy. The stars above seemed far away, cold, unreachable. Her eyes grew heavy, her body too tired to move. Just before sleep took her, she heard it, a new sound, different from raiders, different from the wind, slow, heavy steps, metal pressing on, sand, armor scraping against stone. The ground shook with every step. Her eyes opened wide. Fear returned to her chest. Someone was coming. The sound grew louder, closer, stronger. The girl tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She pressed herself against the rock, hiding her face. Her small heart beat like a drum in her chest. The shadow of a tall figure fell over her, blocking the moonlight. She dared to lift her eyes, and saw him, a man in heavy white and red armor, scratched and dirty from battle. His helmet was scarred, his shoulder burned, his hands carried a large weapon. His face was human, worn and tired, with eyes that had seen too much. The little girl froze, unable to move. Was he friend or enemy, savior or killer? She could not tell. The man looked down at her, silent. For a long moment, nothing moved. Only the desert wind whispered between them. Then, he bent slowly, reaching into a bag at his side. He pulled out a small packet. The smell of food filled the air. The girl's stomach screamed with hunger. Her eyes followed the packet like it was the sun itself. But her fear chained her in place. The man spoke softly, his voice deep and human. "Eat," he said, offering the food. The girl stared at his hand, at the strange kindness in his tone. No one had spoken to her like that since her parents were alive. Her lips trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. Still, she did not move. The dessert was silent, waiting for her choice. Would she trust this stranger? Or stay alone in the dark? Asterisk. The old man up Pierce's girl's hands shook as she stared at the packet of food. The smell was rich and warm, a smell she had not known since the war began. Her stomach twisted painfully, begging her to take it. But her mind whispered fear. What if it was a trick? What if this man heard her once she reached out? The old man did not move closer. He stayed on one knee, holding the packet with steady hands. His eyes were calm, his breath heavy but controlled. In the faint moonlight, the scars on his armor told stories of battles long past. He looked like a warrior who had walked to many roads, fought to many enemies, yet his voice, when he spoke again, was soft. Eat, child. You are too small to starve. The alien girl lowered her eyes. Her lips trembled. Her hunger battled her fear. Finally, with slow trembling fingers, she reached forward. Her tiny blue hand touched the rough glove of the soldier. She grabbed the packet and pulled it close to her chest. For a moment, she hesitated, staring at it as if it might vanish. Then she opened it with her teeth and ate quickly, her glowing. Tears rolled down her cheeks as the taste filled her mouth. The food was simple, dry human rations. But to her, it was sweeter than anything she had ever tasted. The man watched quietly. He did not rush her, did not speak more. Only when she finished did he lower his weapon to the ground and remove his helmet. His face was weathered, with deep lines carved by years of war. His hair was gray, his beard rough, his eyes a tired shade of steel. He was old, far older than the soldiers she had seen before, yet there was no cruelty in his gaze, only patience. The girl licked her fingers. Her stomach no longer hurt so badly. But now she felt strange. Her people had abandoned her. The raiders hunted her. Why was this human different? She called her knees to her chest and whispered in her broken voice, why help me? The old man tilted his head. For a moment, silence stretched between them again. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying both sadness and strength. No one should be left behind. Not even you. The girl's heart thumped. She did not understand all his words, but she felt the meaning. Tears ran down her cheeks again, and she turned her face away. She did not want him to see her cry. She was afraid, because hope was dangerous. Hope could break when people walked away. The old man sat beside the rock. Not too close, not too far. He placed his weapon across his lap and stared at the stars above. The night was cold, but he did not complain. He pulled a blanket from his bag and tossed it gently toward her. The fabric smelled of smoke and dust, but it was warm. The girl hesitated again, then wrapped it around herself. For the first time in weeks, her shivering slowed. Hours passed in silence. The man did not ask her questions, did not demand anything. He simply stayed, watching the horizon. The girl's eyes grew heavy. Her small body, now full and warm, gave into sleep. As she drifted away, she wondered if the man would still be there when she woke, or if, like everyone else, he would vanish into the night. When dawn broke, the sunlight painted the desert in gold. The girl's eyes opened slowly, her body stiff from the cold ground. Her first thought was fear. She looked to the spot beside her. The old man was still there. He sat with his weapon ready, as if he had guarded her all night. His eyes scanned the distance, sharp and alert. When he noticed her waking, he gave a small nod. Good, you live, he said, his voice low but firm. He reached into his bag and gave her a small can of water. She drank, her throat finally easing from the dryness. The girl studied him quietly now. He was human, but different from the ones she had seen before. He was not young, not loud, not cruel. He was tired, but steady, broken, yet unyielding. As the sun climbed higher, the old man stood. He strapped his weapon across his back and looked down at her. You cannot stay here, he said. Raiders will return. Hunger will return. death will return. He extended his hand toward her. The girl froze. She stared at the rough, scarred hand offered to her. It was a choice: stay alone in the ruins, or trust the stranger who had fed her. Her chest rose and fell, her eyes wide with fear. She remembered her parents leaving, the ships flying away. She remembered hunters chasing her. But she also remembered the packet of food, the blanket, the watchful guard through the night. Her small fingers trembled. Slowly, she lifted her hand and placed it into his. The old man's grip was strong, but gentle. He pulled her to her feet and spoke. Then come, little one. You will walk with me now. For the first time, the alien girl did not feel completely alone. But deep inside, a question burned. How long would he stay? Would he leave like all the others? Or would he truly remain? The journey had just begun, and the desert was wide. But the old man and the orphaned child walked together, their shadows stretching across the sand. Building trust. Desert sun was harsh, sun stretched in every direction. Endless and cruel, the little alien girl walked beside the old man, her small legs struggling to keep pace. Every step felt heavy, but she did not complain. The blanket he had given her was wrapped tight around her shoulders. It was the only shield she had against the burning heat. In the cold nights, the old man walked with steady rhythm, his boots pressing deep into the sand. He carried his weapon across his back and his bag of supplies by his side. He looked ahead always, scanning the horizon. His eyes missed nothing, his ears sharp to every sound. The girl noticed how careful he was. Every few steps, he glanced back at her, making sure she did not fall behind. It was strange for her. No one had ever cared if she was safe since her parents were gone. By midday, they stopped under a broken arch of stone. The old man pulled out food and water, sharing it with her first. She hesitated, then ate, still shy but no longer frozen with fear. Her body grew stronger with each bite, her eyes less hollow, her voice less weak. After eating, she tried to speak in her broken tongue. The man frowned, not understanding. Then he pointed at himself, touching his chest. John, he said slowly. The girl blinked, tilting her head. He repeated, tapping his chest again. John, she whispered the sound, her voice soft. J. Own. The old man gave a small smile, his weathered face softening. Then he pointed at her, waiting. She lowered her eyes, hugging her knees. Her name was a fragile thing, the only gift left from her family. Finally, she whispered it, so quiet, the wind almost carried it away. Lyra. The man nodded firmly. Lyra, he repeated, making her name sound strong. The girl's lips curved in a faint smile, the first in many days. It was a small beginning, a bridge between two lives. The days passed. They walked together. John taught her simple human words: water, food, fire, safe, danger. Sometimes she laughed when he spoke clumsy versions of her alien tongue. His voice was deep and rough, but he tried, and that effort made her heart feel warm. She began to trust. Trust grew with every shared meal, every safe night by the fire, every time he shielded her from the wind. But the girl's fear never fully vanished. At night, when the fire burned low, she sometimes woke up shaking. In her dreams, she saw her parents leaving, ships flying into the sky. She saw raiders' cruel faces, sharp weapons raised against her. Her tears glowed faintly in the dark, and she hugged her knees close. Once, she thought John was asleep, but when her quiet sobs escaped, he stirred. He did not speak, did not question her. He only placed his blanket over her shoulders and sat close, guarding the fire. His silence was stronger than words. It told her she was not alone. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, John stopped at an old ruin. There were half-broken walls and the remains of a tower standing tall. He led Lyra inside, checking every corner before settling. Together they made a small camp. As the flames of their fire danced against the stone, John took out a small piece of metal from his bag. It was scratched and dull, but shaped like a bird with wings spread wide. Lyra tilted her head, curious. John turned it slowly in his hands. his eyes distant. "This was from my daughter," he said softly. "She gave it to me before the war took her away." Lyra's heart clenched. She did not understand all his words, but she felt the sorrow in his voice. She reached forward with trembling fingers, touching the bird. Her glowing eyes met his tired ones. She whispered her word for family in her own language. John nodded slowly. "Yes, family," he said, repeating her word clumsily but with meaning. From that night, Lyra knew something had changed. They were no longer only survivor and protector. They were something more, a bond made from shared loss, a bond built not on blood, but on choice. Still, danger was never far. One night, while they rested under the tower, Lyra heard faint noises in the distance, voices carried on the wind, rough and cruel. Her body tensed, fear rushing back into her heart. She shook John awake, pointing toward the sound. His eyes narrowed, his hand gripping his weapon. "Raiders," he muttered, his voice like steel. He stood, scanning the dark horizon. The shadows moved closer, carrying torches and weapons. Lyra pressed against the wall, trembling. She thought of running, thought of hiding, but her eyes stayed on John. He was old, his body scarred, but he did not bend. His voice came firm and clear. "Stay behind me, Lyra." Her heart pounded. For the first time, she felt something new, not only fear, but also faith. Faith that this human, this old man, would not leave her, not like the others, not like her people. He had chosen to stay, and now she chose to trust him. The firelight flickered on the ruined walls as danger approached. The night was heavy with silence before the storm, and in that silence, a bond stronger than blood held them together. Asterisk danger returns. Night was heavy with tension. The ruined tower stood tall, its shadow stretching across the sand. Inside, Lyra pressed her small body against the wall, clutching the old blanket to her chest. Her glowing eyes widened as she heard the distant voices growing louder. The sound of boots on stone, metal clashing, and cruel laughter echoed in the dark. John crouched near the broken archway, his weapon gripped tight in his hands. The old soldier's eyes were sharp, scanning every movement outside. He had fought many battles in his life, but this one was different. This time, he was not fighting for glory, not for duty. He was fighting to protect a child. The raiders came into view, shadows moving with torches. There were 6 of them there, armor patched, their faces hidden under rough masks. They carried blades, guns, and cruel hooks. Their voices carried through the night as they argued and laughed. John knew men like this. They had no honor, no mercy. They hunted the weak. And tonight, they had found prey. Lyra's breathing was fast, her small hands shaking. She remembered the last time she had seen raiders. Her parents had tried to run with her. The memory of screams, of fire, of blood flashed through her mind. Tears filled her eyes, but she bit her lip to keep silent. John glanced back at her, his weathered face calm but firm. "Stay quiet, stay behind me," he whispered, his voice steady as stone. Lyra nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. The raiders spread out, searching the ruins. Their boots scraped against the stone floor as they moved closer. One of them laughed harshly, pointing toward the firelight that still burned low in the tower. "There, someone's here." John took a deep breath. He was old, his body tired, but his spirit was unbroken. He lifted his rifle and took aim. The first shot cracked through the night. A raider dropped, his torch falling to the ground, fire spilling. Across the sand, the others shouted in rage, weapons raised, rushing toward the tower. John fired again, his movements sharp and precise. Another raider fell, but the rest were faster. Bullets struck the walls, sparks flying as stone cracked. The tower shook with the sound of battle. Lyra covered her ears, fear clawing at her chest. She wanted to run, to hide. But when she looked at John, she froze. He was standing tall, his rifle blazing, his voice shouting with fury. He was not just fighting, he was protecting her. Every shot, every step was to keep her alive. The raiders closed in, their leader shouting commands. They threw a burning torch through the archway. The fire spread across the floor, lighting the walls with angry flames. Lyra gasped, shrinking back. The heat stung her skin, her tears glowing in the light. John growled, pushing her toward the back of the room. Go, move back, stay low. His own body shielded her from the flames and the bullets. Even when one bullet grazed his arm, he did not fall. His jaw tightened. His eyes burned with rage. He would not let them take her. The raiders stormed into the tower, weapons raised. Steel clashed against steel as John swung his knife. The old soldier fought like a beast, his body moving with the memory of countless battles. Every strike was brutal, every move heavy with purpose. He cut down one, then another. But still, more came. Lyra trembled. Watching the chaos, her heart screamed for her to do something. She grabbed a broken piece of stone and threw it with all her strength. It struck one raider in the helmet, stunning him. Jun took the chance and struck the man down. For the first time, Lyra felt the fire of courage in her chest. But the battle was not over. The raider leader, a tall brute with jagged armor and cruel eyes, stepped forward. He carried a massive blade, glowing with red heat. Jun raised his weapon, but the leader knocked it aside with one swing. The old soldier staggered back, his chest heaving. The blade slashed across his shoulder, blood spilling down his armor. Still, he did not fall. He roared in defiance and slammed his fist into the leader's face. The fight was brutal, both men striking with all they had. The leader's strength was great, but John's determination was greater. Behind him, Lyra cried out. Her small voice echoed through the burning ruins. John. The sound gave him power. With one final push, John drove his knife deep into the raider's chest. The leader gasped, falling to his knees, then crumpled to the ground. The others, seeing their leader dead, shouted in panic and fled into the night. The ruins grew silent again, the fire crackling softly. John dropped to one knee, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Blood stained his armor, his face pale with pain. Lyra rushed to him, her small hands trembling as she touched his arm. Her glowing tears fell onto his wounds. You stay. Please don't leave me, she whispered. John looked at her, his eyes tired but steady. His hand rose and gently touched her head. I'm not going anywhere, he said, his voice rough but certain. The night closed around them. The fire burned low, the raiders gone, and though John was wounded, the bond between him and Lyra grew stronger than ever. They had faced death together, and together, they had survived. The bond-tested ruins were quiet again. The smell of smoke and blood filled the air. The fire burned low, throwing weak light across the broken stone. John leaned against the wall, his breath heavy, his shoulder bleeding. His old armor was cracked, his hands trembling from the fight, but his eyes stayed sharp, watching the darkness for any sign of return. Lyra knelt beside him, her small hands shaking as she tried to cover his wound with the blanket. Her glowing tears fell fast, dripping onto his armor. You hurt, she whispered, her voice breaking. John forced a tired smile. It's nothing, he said, though his voice was rough with pain. He reached out and touched her head gently. You're safe. That's what matters. But Lyra's chest ached. For the first time, she realized how fragile he was. He was strong, yes, but he was also old. And the blood on his chest was real. If he fell, she would be alone again. The night dragged slowly. John grew weaker, his body shaking with fever. Still, he refused to lie down. He kept his weapon close, his eyes half open. Lyra sat beside him, refusing to sleep. Her small hands clutched the piece of metal shaped like a bird, the gift he had shown her. She whispered softly, repeating the word he had taught her, family. When dawn came, John finally tried to stand. His body wavered, his legs unsteady. Lyra rushed to his side, pulling at his arm. No, she said, her voice stronger than before. You rest, I help. John looked at her, surprised. Her eyes were still wet with tears, but there was fire in them now. She was not only afraid anymore, She was determined. The old soldier gave a small nod and sat back down. For the first time, he let her take the lead. Lyra searched through his bag, finding small supplies. She did not know how to treat wounds like humans did, but she remembered how her mother once wrapped her father's injuries. With careful hands, she tore strips of cloth from the blanket and pressed them against John's shoulder. He hissed in pain, but did not pull away. "You're doing well," he muttered. Her heart swelled at his words. Even as she worked through her fear, hours passed slowly. John drifted in and out of sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, Lyra felt panic rise in her chest. She would shake him gently, whispering his name until he opened them again. Her fear was not of the raiders, not of hunger or fire. Her fear was of losing him. Because now she knew, if he left, she would not survive, not because of weakness, but because her heart could not bear the emptiness again. That evening, shadows moved again at the edge of the ruins. Lyra froze, clutching John's weapon, her small hands barely able to hold the heavy rifle. John stirred, his voice faint. "Lyra, hide." But she shook her head, her glowing eyes fierce. "No, I stay." The shadows came closer. But they were not raiders this time. They were scavengers, 2 men searching for supplies. Their armor was light, their eyes greedy. When they saw the firelight inside the tower, they grinned. "Easy prey," one muttered. Stepping forward, John tried to rise, but his body betrayed him. He stumbled, his knees hitting the ground. The scavengers laughed cruelly, raising their weapons. But before they could enter, a sharp crack split the air. The rifle in Lyra's hands had fired. The blast echoed across the ruins. One scavenger fell to the ground, the other stumbling back in shock. Lyra's small body shook with the recoil, tears streaming down her cheeks. But her hands did not let go of the weapon. She pointed it again with trembling arms. Her voice rose, broken but strong. "Go." The second scavenger hesitated. He looked at John, wounded, and the child standing in front of him. Then he cursed and ran into the desert, leaving his fallen partner behind. The ruins fell silent once more. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. John stared at Lyra, his eyes wide. "You saved us," he whispered. Lyra dropped the rifle, her small body collapsing against him, her tears wet his armor. But this time they were not only of fear, they were of strength, of choice. She had chosen to fight, chosen to stay. John wrapped his arm around her, weak but firm. "You are braver than many soldiers I knew," he said softly. "You are not alone anymore." That night, the 2 of them rested together under the broken tower. John still weak, Lyra still trembling. But their bond had been tested by fire, and now it was stronger than ever. They were no longer just protector and orphan. They were family, fighting, side by side. And though danger still waited in the shadows of the desert, one truth had been carved deep into their hearts. They would not abandon each other. Not now, not ever. A new home desert stretched for many days. John and Lyra moved slowly, its step heavy with pain and weariness. John's wound had begun to heal, but he was still weak. Lyra carried part of his bag now, her small body struggling but refusing to quit. She no longer walked behind him, she walked beside him, the old soldier and the little alien girl, side by side under the endless sun. At night, they rested under broken rocks or hollow trees. Sometimes Lyra guarded while John slept. Her glowing eyes scanned the darkness. Her small hands clutched the heavy rifle. Fear still lived inside her heart, but courage lived there now too. On the 4th morning, they saw something new on the horizon. A wall of stone and metal, rising out of the desert like a fortress. Smoke curled from chimneys. Banners moved in the wind. John narrowed his eyes. "A settlement," he muttered, his voice cautious. Lyra tilted her head, hope flickering inside her chest. Maybe food, maybe safety, maybe a home. When they reached the gates, armed guards blocked the way. They looked at John first, their eyes sharp. Then they looked at Lyra, and their faces twisted with suspicion. "She's not human," one guard spat. Another raised his weapon. "Aliens bring trouble. Send her away." Lyra stepped back, her body trembling, her heart sank like a stone. She had felt this before: rejection, abandonment. Would John leave her now? Would he choose safety with the humans instead of danger with her? But John stepped forward, his voice hard as steel. "She stays with me," he said. The guards frowned, their hands gripping weapons. "Why protect her?" One asked. "She's a child," John growled. "And she's mine now." The guards whispered to each other, their eyes cold. Finally, they opened the gate. "Fine, old man," one muttered. "But if she causes trouble, both of you will be thrown out." Inside, the settlement was crowded with people. Children laughed, merchants shouted, soldiers marched. But when Lyra walked through the streets, silence followed her. Humans stopped and stared. Some pulled their children close. Some whispered harsh words. "Monster, outsider. Why is she here?" Lyra lowered her head, clutching John's hand tightly. Her glowing tears threatened to fall. She wished she could vanish, wished she could hide. But John's grip was firm, steady. He did not let go. He walked with her through the crowd, his head high. The people could whisper, they could stare. But he would not abandon her. They were given a small hut near the edge of the walls. It was simple, with rough stone walls and a thin roof. To Lyra, it was more than she had ever dreamed. A place to sleep without fear, a place with warmth. At night, she curled under the blanket while John sat by the door, guarding as always. Her heart whispered a quiet truth. This was home, even if the world hated her. Days turned to weeks. John worked in the settlement, fixing weapons, guarding walls. His skill as a soldier earned him respect. But still, people whispered when they saw Lyra. Some children threw stones at her when John was away. She did not cry, she simply walked away. But inside, her chest hurt. She wondered if she truly belonged. One evening, when the sun bled red across the desert sky, John returned to their hut and found her sitting outside, her knees drawn to her chest, her eyes glowing with sadness. He sat beside her, his voice gentle. "They don't understand you." "But I do." She looked up, tears falling. "They hate me. Will you hate me too?" John turned his scarred face toward her, his eyes steady. "No," he said firmly. "I chose you, and I don't regret it." Her small heart swelled. She pressed her glowing hand to his chest where the wound had healed. "Family," she whispered, using both her word and his. John nodded, his weathered face softening into a rare smile. Yes, family. But their peace was not without danger. One night, a horn sounded on the walls. Raiders had come again, stronger, faster, and more ruthless than before. The settlement shook with cries of alarm. John grabbed his weapon, his body stiff, but ready. Lyra ran to his side, fear and fire burning inside her chest. The people of the settlement looked at her with doubt. But for the first time, she did not lower her head. She stood tall beside John, ready to face whatever came. The old soldier and the little alien girl had found a place called home. But now they would have to fight to protect it. Legacy of humanity. The alarm bells echoed across the settlement. Torches lit the night as soldiers rushed to the walls. Voices shouted. Children cried. Fear spread through the streets. The raiders had come again, and this time they came in numbers. John stood tall at the gate, his rifle gripped in steady hands, his scarred face calm, though his body still carried the weight of old wounds. Beside him, Lyra stood with wide glowing eyes. Her small hands clutched a smaller weapon John had given her. It was too heavy for her size, but she held it tightly. Her heart pounded, not only with fear but with courage. The people of the settlement muttered behind them, "Why is that alien child here? She will only bring us danger." But John's voice cut through their whispers, firm and unyielding. "She is with me," he said, "and if you doubt her, then you doubt me." The gates shook as raiders slammed against them, the air filled with the sound of war cries and drums. The soldiers tensed, gripping their weapons. Then the gates burst open, and the fight began. John moved like the soldier he had always been. His rifle cracked again and again, each shot precise. Lyra stayed close to him, her small body shaking. But when a raider broke through the line and charged at them. She raised her weapon and fired. The blast struck true, and the raider fell. The soldiers round her froze, staring. In shock, the alien child had fought beside them, not against them. The battle raged deep into the night. Flames lit the sky. Shadows clashed against shadows. John fought with the strength of a man who refused to fall, and Lyra stayed by his side, her courage burning brighter than her fear. Together they pushed back wave after wave. Together they held the line. When the last raider finally fled into the desert, the gates were shut. The fires slowly died. The settlement was left wounded, but alive, and the people turned their eyes toward John and the little alien girl. She stood with dust on her face, her hands trembling. But she had not run. She had not hidden. She had fought for them, bled for them, and now, even the harshest voices could not deny the truth. Whispers spread through the crowd. She's only a child, but she's brave. She saved us. Maybe she belongs here after all. John placed his hand on her small shoulder. His voice carried through the silence. "This girl is my daughter," he said. And she fought with more courage than many grown men tonight. Lyra looked up at him, her glowing eyes wide with emotion. His words echoed inside her heart, filling the emptiness that had lived there since her parents were gone. The people bowed their heads, slowly at first. Then, one soldier stepped forward and saluted her. Another placed food in her hands. A mother pulled her own child close, whispering, "Be like her, be brave." For the first time, the settlement did not see her as a monster. They saw her as one of them. Days passed, and life returned to the wolves. Lyra was no longer whispered about in fear. Children approached her with curiosity. She taught them small words from her own language. They laughed, they played, and for the first time, she laughed with them. John watched from a distance, his weathered face softening. His old heart, so tired from years of war, felt light again. One night, under the stars, Lyra sat beside him outside their hut. She held the metal bird he had once shown her. Her glowing fingers traced its wings. "Your daughter," she said softly. John nodded, his eyes on the sky. "Yes, she was my daughter." Lyra pressed the bird to his chest and whispered, "Now, I am your daughter." John's throat tightened, his eyes wet though he tried to hide it. He pulled her close, his voice rough but steady. "Yes, Lyra, you are my daughter, my family." The stars above shone bright, endless and eternal. The old soldier and the little alien girl sat together, no longer broken, no longer alone. She was no longer an orphan starving in the ruins. She was his child, his legacy, his hope. And though the galaxy was wide and full of danger, they would face it together, not as soldier and orphan, not as human and alien, but as father and daughter, a family bound not by blood, but by love forever.